What makes an athlete great? What's the differentiator between the talented and the exceptional? A lot of times the difference is here in the mind. And that's one thing that I learned while playing on tour for 10 years and even interacting with some of the best athletes in the world.
Cheyenne Woods to win it. She's done it.
Being related to a sports icon opened up my curiosity to how they get it done. Hi, I'm Cheyenne. Welcome to my new show. Hi, welcome to my show. I'm Cheyenne, and I am a former LPGA Tour player. I played for 10 years on tour. I won on the European Tour in Australia, and now I am a mom. I've always been fascinated with the greatness in sport. But let's back up. Let's start from the beginning. Who am I? A lot of you might think you know me through playing on tour, being in the sponsorship ads, but that is just a shell of me. That's a job, honestly, that I grew up learning to be, thinking that I had to be. So I want to open up that door to show you a little bit more of who Cheyenne truly is. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and my dad happens to be Earl Woods Jr. If you don't know the name Earl Woods, you might know the name Tiger Woods, who is my dad's half brother. They share the same dad, different moms, but that is how I was introduced to the game of golf. My grandfather, Earl Woods Sr., first put a club in my hands, from what I'm told, when I was 2 years old. Some of my best memories were spending vacations, summer vacations, going to my grandpa's house in California, hearing the stories of him and Tiger, seeing the garage where Tiger first started swinging. And those were the same clubs that I started with too. Very early on, golf was the coolest thing ever. And I knew I wanted it in my life. Golf was not popular. It was not where it is today whatsoever. I grew up wearing boys' golf clothes. I'm sure we can show you a lot of embarrassing photos of that. But I just grew up watching the coolest golfer in the world on TV and knowing that he was my uncle. I would go to school and tell my whole class, Tiger Woods is my uncle. When he would come to the Phoenix Open, I would wear my Tiger Woods shirt and be behind the ropes on the 16th hole at TPC Scottsdale and cheer him on. Neither of my parents ever played golf. I have two older half brothers, never played golf, but I had that direct connection of what's possible. I had the absolute best example of what somebody can achieve. And as I said, a young brown girl in Phoenix, nobody was doing that. I don't remember the first time my grandfather ever put a club in my hand, but I will always remember the moments in his house watching golf with him, hearing the stories, or even messing around with some clubs that he has, seeing Tiger's trophies in his living room and the photos on the wall. And honestly, I only had the opportunity to go on the golf course with my grandfather a handful of times, but they were the most memorable. He took me to Junior World, my first Junior World Championship in San Diego, and it just felt like I could do anything because he was there. I felt like he knew everything. And if you did know Earl Woods, it seemed like he did know everything. He was the wisest, most interesting man you might ever meet. One of the lessons I do remember my grandfather teaching me on the golf course was he simplified it of putting to the picture, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard him talk about with Tiger. And I was probably 10 years old or so, and he put down his pack of cigarettes next to the hole. And he said, "Putt to the picture, putt to the cigarettes. Just look at it and putt to that. Don't think about anything else." And we did that. I remember sitting in my grandpa's kitchen, which we did a lot while he cooked breakfast. He made the best breakfast potatoes. And I remember sitting there eating with him, and my grandpa told me he had written an official report that he submitted to IMG about me as a 3-year-old and what he thought that I could achieve one day. And I asked him, "Well, what does it say?" And he said, "I'm not going to tell you that right now, but one day they will come to recruit you and you'll be able to read that letter." My grandfather passed while I was in high school. So when I was in college and IMG came to Wake Forest, they brought the letter. I have goosebumps every time I think about it. I always remembered the moment he told me he believed in me so much that he wrote that report. having that belief from my grandpa meant the world to me. And that's why I realize how important it is to not only have that belief within yourself, but have a support system that believes in you too. I was never the best player in the country, but I knew that I had potential because my grandpa saw it. And maybe he didn't really even see it. I don't know. I've never had that conversation with him. But he just loved me so much, and that idea that he saw that in me never, ever left me, and I do believe that is the sole reason that I was able to make it to the LPGA Tour. I wanted to do it for him and what he knew I was capable of, and I wanted to do it for me so I could prove to myself that that was true. I thought it was the coolest thing ever to be Tiger Woods' niece. It definitely evolved as I got older. That relationship with being a Woods definitely changed. I always appreciate being a part of the Woods family and what that means in golf specifically. But it got to a point, especially in my college and early professional years, where I started to realize that maybe people didn't see me as me. Maybe people didn't care about me because of me. They simply saw me as Woods. That was always the headline, that was always the conversation, and it really took a toll on me. I started noticing the shift in how I felt about being a Woods in the golf world when I turned professional. That was always my dream, was to play professional golf, and it wasn't because I wanted to be connected to Tiger, it was because I love competition, and I wanted to see how far I could take it. Once I did earn LPGA Tour status, I realized that most people weren't interested in my accomplishment, they were interested in my relationship with Tiger. Every interview I did, the headline a lot of times was Tiger Woods' niece or, Cheyenne Woods, comma, Tiger Woods' niece, because that's what makes me interesting, apparently, which I get. Tiger is iconic, and Tiger is one of the biggest names in sports in general. It was something that I really had to learn how to deal with. I wasn't going to deny opportunities. So I played in everything I possibly could. Yes, there were some hard things that came along with being a Woods, but the opportunities, the platform, and the things that I learned definitely outshined any negative. I got a scholarship at Wake Forest University. And those 4 years at Wake were transformational in what I learned to live on my own, what I learned it takes to be a great golfer, and it was a great transition to then the professional life. As I graduated and turned pro, in your mind, you have a plan. I'm gonna graduate, I'm turning pro, I'm going to Q school, I'm getting my card. You see that, boom, boom, boom. The reality is not as simple, and my first year out, I did not make it through even the first stage of Q School, which meant I couldn't even play on the Epson Tour, which at the time was Symetra. And on the men's side, it's the equivalent of Korn Ferry. And, where am I supposed to play? I'm a professional golfer. I have the sponsor on my bag. I have the headlines that people are writing, but where am I gonna play? Um, that was nothing that ever crossed my mind, and that's when I saw the opportunity to play in Europe, and it was scary to think about going over there by myself to somewhere I've never really traveled before as a young 21-year-old with no money and just trying to make it, but that was, like, the perfect combination of just, "Why not?" And I love a challenge. It was the best experience of my life. I never realized how hard it is to make it on tour, clearly, it takes a lot, but, in my mind, I just always thought that I was capable and that it would happen, and when it wasn't happening, I started to have a little bit of self-doubt and questioning myself. As I was playing in Europe, I learned so much, and even in that first year, I had the doubts, I was just figuring it out. You're so young, professional golf is so different, it's a transition where you're learning a lot about yourself and your game, that I had to really figure out what is the difference maker between where I am now and where I need to be. And that's when I realized a lot of it was right here in the head. I've always been interested in sports psychology and always love reading and love working with sports psychologists. But I really didn't make that transition until I read one of my favorite books of all time. I actually read it the week before I won in Australia. It was The Alchemist. And it's not a sports psychology book, but it's a book about how you see yourself, what you think is made for you in your life, and what's truly in your heart. And when I read that book, I had missed the cut, I think the first 2 cuts of the season. And I just was really enjoying this book, and I finished it the week before I was playing in Australia. And what it meant to me was I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And if I just let go of everything I think I'm supposed to be doing or where I think I'm supposed to be in life and just let it be, it will be. And it really freed me up to be able to play in Australia. I was enjoying it. I felt like no matter what was coming my way, it was supposed to be there in order for me to continue my journey to being the best version of me, whether that be a golfer or not. So I went to Australia and I won. It was the freest I ever felt on the golf course. Things just came easy. And that's when you play your best golf, of course, but how do you get there? I've experienced it maybe once or twice in my career where I can really go back to that moment and feel that it was different. So, with some of the highest moments in your career comes some of the lowest. And a lot of times you can only get to the highest because you got through those lows. And we've all been there. I've definitely had my fair share. I think my career started okay. It wasn't horrible. When I got my LPGA tour status, I would say that was a peak for me. When I started playing on the LPGA, I noticed that I was trying to play like a version of myself I thought I was supposed to be now that I was an LPGA Tour player.
Playing her opening hole today.
And every once in a while, Cheyenne will throw in a really good round. She'll shoot a 65 here and there, but she just lacks a little bit of consistency.
I didn't believe in my version of my game. I was always a feel player. I was never like an over grinder. I believed in myself. I loved to compete. I just felt a lot of the shots that I was hitting. Um, So I started playing outside of myself. I started second guessing the type of player I was or should be. And that's something I love also talking to athletes about of how do you differentiate bettering your own game versus then thinking you have to completely change into a different type of player. How do you have those conversations with yourself or your support system? And that was something that I just couldn't figure out. And it got so bad to the point that I was putting so much pressure on results and trying to be a player that I thought I was supposed to be. I developed a really severe performance anxiety that came out in the form of yips, which a lot of people might not know what it is. And a lot of golfers don't even like saying the word. It's another 4-letter word that we're not supposed to say. But yips is essentially your nervous system. You have no control of your nervous system. You're shaking. It's like a yip in your hands, fingers, arms, whatever it might be, in a specific shot. Some people have driver yips, where at contact, you can't control the face and it goes everywhere. I had it in putting. It got so bad. I remember I think maybe it developed after this one putt I remember. I missed a tap in Hawaii that I then missed the cut by 1, and when you're missing cuts, every cut matters. It's like the pressure builds, 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 and I felt like I just threw it away. And my yips got so bad, I remember playing in Dubai where I had to start putting with my eyes closed. I started putting cross-handed, traditional. I tried different putters. I tried looking at the hole as I putted. I couldn't feel the club in my hands. I could see it shaking as I was putting. I would hit the green, and if it was outside of 5 feet, I felt great. I could make this putt. Let's get it really close. Because if it was anywhere between 6 inches to 3 feet, 5 feet, I would not be able to feel my heart. My heart's racing, my hands are sweating, my hands are shaking. I can't control the putter face. I would be marking a 6-inch putt because I don't trust myself to tap it in. I would miss it. I would not hit the hole. It was embarrassing. It was actually really embarrassing. And I'm getting emotional. I feel so silly, like, being emotional about this. It's not like the end of the world, but it feels like it. It's debilitating. Um, people people's careers end because of this. And it's so silly because it's like you practice thousands of hours. We've all put in the 10,000 hours to be an expert at golf, and we've reached the highest pinnacle of the sport. And I'm going to let some silly 6-inch putt that I can't even hit the hole deter me. And it did. I remember in Dubai, I got a hole in one in Dubai, but I can't make a putt that's this short. That was a breaking point for me of just feeling like I don't know where I am, what I'm doing, how to get out of it. I'll never forget that feeling. And that was probably the lowest of lows of my career. I not only wasn't performing, I felt so isolated in what I was going through. I didn't know how to fix it. I had no confidence. I sought out every sports psychologist possible to just have a quick fix. I need to fix this. How can I fix it? Is what I thought was going to happen. And honestly, it didn't sort itself out until I actually went to individual therapy. It's like, screw the sports therapist. I need to focus on myself because this is more than a golf thing. Why am I putting so much pressure on myself? And that's when I realized, me being a Woods, as much as I try to deny that, "No, it doesn't affect me, this and that," I put so much pressure on myself of who I thought I was supposed to be, how I thought I was supposed to be performing, rather than, like, when I was in Australia, I just let it come as it is, be who you are, and play free. I had so much become removed from that, that I didn't recognize who I was on the golf course, and I had to relearn who I was off the golf course. I went to this therapist. She wasn't a sports psychologist, but based on the feelings I was having while I was on the golf course, or even thinking about going to the golf course, I would have the symptoms of the sweaty palms and the heart racing and all of those anxiety symptoms coming up. So through EMDR, we were able to work through each situation that would give me these feelings, and I would have to really train my brain to disassociate the negativity with those experiences. And it took a while to really retrain and rewire my nervous system to not be triggered by the golf course, be triggered by pulling into the parking lot or thinking about being on the first tee. We went through every single situation where I could possibly be triggered by anything golf related, and I had to go through the little, the vibrate. I don't know if anybody knows about EMDR, but they're the little vibrating things that it sounds so silly. How could this possibly work? But it worked. I had to breathe through it. I had to do the little things and see how my body was feeling in every situation. And slowly but surely, I was able to eliminate that anxiety from my system. And I remember I'd come back and I think I placed like top 20. And I was like, I could have never gotten here without that because I couldn't control my nerves, my stress, my anxiety, but I had to truly rewire my brain in such a crazy way to be able to just be calm on the golf course again. And that was a really transformational couple of years to where I had to really get through that on my own. And I started playing a little bit better. I never got back to where I was or my peak was, or I was playing really great golf, but I at least was enjoying myself on the golf course again. And for me, that was a huge turning point. I have sweaty hands right now thinking about it. Clearly, I still have some work to do. I always kept some type of LPGA status. I struggled keeping full status, but I would always have opportunities with my status of being able to play in events and the opportunity to improve my status. And to me, that's all I needed, the opportunity. Like, let me just get a chance to play and play my best, and we can go from there. I started to see maybe I need to dabble into other things when, like I said, I just wasn't loving what I knew it took to play the golf I wanted it to play. I didn't genuinely love practice. Nobody loves practice rounds. But I wasn't excited to go to golf tournaments. I wasn't excited to tee it up on Thursday mornings. I love the competition, but I think I had become a little bit burned out of that tour life, whereas TV was really exciting to me. So I was slowly starting to transition or open up to the idea of opportunities in the TV world when I met my now husband. And COVID hit. And honestly, COVID was such a transformative time for me. It was the first time ever in my life, really, I was home for that amount of time without traveling or having obligations, that I really loved it. I loved being around family. Something that a lot of us miss as professional golfers, you miss those intimate moments with family when you're on the road living out of a suitcase and traveling 30 plus weeks out of the year. It's a very difficult lifestyle that I loved at one point, but I was getting to a point in my life where I felt like I was ready to settle down into something more stable. And I had a lot of time to think about what I truly enjoyed. What do I really love to do in life? And at that same time during COVID, I started dating my now husband. So much of our life as golfers is about us, 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 us. This was a relationship that felt different. And I started thinking about other things other than me and my life and traveling and playing all these things. But I thought about like, what kind of life do I truly want to live in the future? And I then started transitioning a little bit more into TV, still playing part time. But in 2022, I played my last tournament competitively at, I think, 4 months pregnant, and that to me, I knew I never wanted to be on tour with kids. So when we had our son Cameron in April of 2022, I just knew maybe one day I would go back and play an event here or there, but that was not the life I wanted to live. So that was kind of the end of that chapter for me of playing on tour. I think as athletes, you feel like you're supposed to be indestructible or like have this gladiator self because you do. You have to have an aspect of that to perform well. And when I was at my lowest lows, I felt so vulnerable and I felt so fake trying to pretend like everything was fine. When if I would have just opened up and talked about it, I probably would have learned that the player next to me has experienced it too. And I think that's why I love the idea of the show and being able to talk to athletes in different arenas, different fields, different sports, because in different ways, everybody's gone through it. But rarely do we really take off that gladiator shell and talk about it. I think it would be so refreshing to hear more stories of the best athletes in the world feeling their most vulnerable selves because we're all just human at the end of the day. And um, and everyone's just chasing their dream in a different way. I'm really looking forward to getting a behind the scenes look of maybe some of the moments as fans that we've all seen and cheered on, or some of the moments that we've all said, "Ooh, what's going on?" and hearing what was going on. We're going to be talking to current athletes, retired athletes, experts in the sports world who have worked with the most elite athletes in the world. So join me on this first season where we're going to go on a journey together. Thank you for watching. We want you to be a part of the show. Every other week, we release special episodes built around what you're curious about and exploring in real time. Leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/real game with your questions related to the show or topics you'd like us to dive into. And you might hear yourself on an episode. Connect with us on Instagram at Cheyenne_Woods. And if you're enjoying these conversations, share the podcast with someone else. We're here to grow together.